welcome to another amazing episode of the Faith, Fire and Float podcast. You are in for such a treat. You have no idea the story you're about to hear, the stories, the backstory, the drama, the intensity, the tension, and then ultimately the wildly successful fruition of an ever-evolving, ever-expanding, incredible brand that is changing the lives of so many women and girls, not only in Australia, but all around the world. And this podcast, this interview recording is with one of my very good friends. This is my friend Ashya, and she's just become such a close friend in my life who's impacted me personally in just tons of ways that I'm not going to go into right now. I appreciate you so much, and I'm so glad you're here today.
I am so glad to be here.
Yeah, and all of which is just to say, honestly, I'm so pumped for you. I just know you're going to receive so much from this interview, from a business perspective, from an entrepreneur perspective, from a faith perspective, and probably have some laughs as well as you relate to some of the ups and downs of business. So Ashya is none other than the founder and CEO of Full Bum Swimwear. We are going to talk about the story of Full Bum Swimwear on this podcast, but I will just mention really quickly that Ashya and her husband Jack actually have multiple businesses. They've had multiple successful businesses for some years now, and they're also pastors in church leadership for 20 years.
20 years.
20 years. So there's a lot of experience here in leadership. There's a lot of experience here in helping and serving people. There's a lot of business experience. You're just in for a wealth of wisdom. So thank you, Ashya, for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Make me sound so good.
You are. You've got to own it and claim it.
Totally.
So we were just talking off camera about what we're going to talk about today. And honestly, like, I get excited just thinking about all these different parts that are going to be shared with you, because it's such a great story. The bringing to life of Full Bum Swimwear. So I'm going to let you start with where that story shared, because otherwise I'll excitedly talk about it for 20 minutes and forget that it's not my interview.
Kat, you'll probably tell it 10 times better than what I can. But like, you are so entwined in the birth of Full Bum Swimwear, and it started simply because we moved to the Gold Coast, and I was noticing that there was a lot of butt cheeks hanging out, which is nothing wrong with that if you've got a great butt, and there's also a lot of women that don't have a great butt, and it just became a joke, like, oh, one day I'm going to start a swimwear brand and I'm going to call it Full Bum Swimwear. And I probably said that for 12 months, and my husband said, oh, you should do that. And we already have multiple businesses, so I'm not lacking in things to do. Yeah, like I'm busy and I've got things going on, and I'm like, no, I'm just mucking around. And I think one day you and I were on a walk, and I was telling you about, we were walking along the beach, and I was saying, oh, I'm going to start a swimwear brand. I'm going to call it Full Bums. Threw it out there, and you're like, you should really do that. I'm like, no, I'm just mucking around, and left it at that. And I think the next time we caught up, I was thinking about it just that little bit more. Like, maybe I should do this. And I had been praying about a business that I could do that would be mine. Our other businesses are very service and higher industry based, and I don't love them. They're not exciting for me.
Yeah, it's not a passion or an interest.
No, and I needed a business that was going to light me up. And, and so I was like, okay, maybe this is the one. And I remember actually talking to you going, what do you think? And you were like, you should really do it. I'm like, yeah, but the name, I'm having a joke, like, was mucking around. And you're like, no, it works perfectly. It says what it is. Yeah. And so that's when I went back and did a bit of research and had a bit of a rant on Facebook on a live, just to see if I was, I could have been the only one that was thinking that had it. Yeah. So I remember one part of that story differently. I remember that beach walk and that conversation. I remember that the Instagram story that I watched was the first thing I ever heard of it. Maybe. And that I was flicking through Instagram, and I didn't know you super well at the time. I think our friendship got a lot closer after that, but we were already friends for sure. But I'd certainly, I guess the point I'm making is saying that I'd never seen you rant about anything. I'm not a ranter.
Beautiful, calm, grounded woman who was the first person to meet and greet and welcome me the very first day that I went to the church that I now continue to be part of. And so Ashya was the one who welcomed me, knew that I was new, introduced my daughter and my son upstairs to the kids' church. And that was where we had met. And so I had you in this, like, never loses it kind of, like, honestly. And not that calm, grounded, godly women can't lose it, because obviously they can and they do. But I remember seeing this Instagram rant where I was like, oh, here we go. And like just ranting off about, there's like nothing wrong with anyone who wants to let their butt hang out on the beach. That's obviously a personal choice, but not everybody wants that. And she was ranting off on a story and like, oh, I just feel like I should make my own swimwear brand and call it Full Bum Swimwear. Like, ha, ha, ha. Yeah. And I think you put a poll on it. And I was like, yes. Yeah. And I remember I messaged you and I said, that is literally the best marketing name I've probably ever heard in my life. Yes. I also think it's genuinely an untapped market. Like, I didn't know, I didn't have research on that, but I knew from my shopping experience that it's not like you could find coverage for your butt, kind of even if you really wanted it. And that was the first bit I remember. And then I do remember that you were like, oh, no, sort of thing, or like, do you really think? And then you questioned the name, and oh my goodness, that name.
Because it's, like it's a little bit tongue in cheek.
It's a bit Aussie,
it is.
But it says what it is. Yes. And there's a lot of power in marketing in saying what it is, particularly when you have a niche that is firstly untapped, which is like, I remember I was so excited for you because I was thinking, when does anyone ever find an untapped niche? Like, is that even a thing anymore? As far as products and so on. So it was a great way of something coming to life, just from an idea that was thrown out. And I love that you mentioned that you prayed about it as well, like in advance. And so sometimes we think those ideas come out of nowhere and it's a throwaway idea, but like looking at the success of Full Bums now, it's pretty clear that God planted that in you and you, 100%. Said yes to it.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I laugh, my husband and I are serial entrepreneurs. We're always buying a business, growing it, selling it, thinking about a business. I mean, we go away for a holiday and we come back with 10 new business ideas. And so I wanted to make sure that this wasn't just a great idea, that it was going to be something that, that 2 years from now, that it was profitable enough that if I was done with it, I could sell it, or that I was still loving the creative, the business, the structures, all that. So it took me a while to actually, from deciding that, okay, I was going to give this a go, to actually deciding to give it a go.
Committing to it.
Yes, committing to it. It was a couple of weeks. Like, it was like really.
I mean, a couple of weeks. I know that some of you right now are watching and listening, and you're sitting there on something that's been a couple of decades in some cases, and definitely a couple of years in a lot of cases. And so I want you to really start listening now as we go into some of the story of Ashya's business, because you're going to hear about not just a business that's ultimately become crazy successful and is just like already graphed and predicted for just phenomenal things. And I saw that from the start. It was obvious. And that's not a throwaway statement. It was like, you're onto something. If you do this, it's going to be huge. And you're not just looking at those outcomes though. And you really need to remember this when you're talking to or hearing from any successful entrepreneur, that there was a journey there and there was a story. And so it wasn't just, that initial doubt and hesitation over the name, even let alone the idea. I remember I was so excited when you said you were actually going to do it. And then let's go into a little bit of the story of what went on from there, like the initial sourcing of samples and the research. Was, is it a great story of committed to the idea and, next minute, here's a crazy successful bikini business?
No, it's like a lot of work. And, I started with an Instagram page, and just, I think all my friends followed along to begin with. And I had no product and I had no samples. So I was posting like pictures of the Australian landscape. Like the Australian landscape, and let's go traveling here and Greek islands and all that kind of thing.
I just want to mention, and sorry to cut you off, I can remember that because you were consistent. I noticed at the time, I don't think I've really seen anyone do that. I don't see anyone doing that in the online coaching space and the entrepreneur space in general, in most of the groups that I move in. You were already consistently posting on your socials before you'd even begun to research or had a product. I mean, honestly, I've already spoke to 3 people today that have told me they're not taking any action or posting anything because they need certainty or clarity on this or that thing on their website.
And I had no brand colors, I had no logo, I had nothing. I simply just started posting pictures and quotes and memes about holidays and travel and anything associated with swimwear. That's all I did, because I just needed to build a bit of a following. I knew if I could get the ball rolling. And and then I started researching. I spent hours on Google and on the net, China, Indonesia, getting samples. It costs lots of money to get all that done, but I knew it was part of, and it was discouraging at times. So many times I'd get a sample and they'd be like, yeah, it's got full bum coverage, and I'd get it And, you know, I had a few people try it on, not just me. You were, yes. Kat was one of my models at the time, and it was not full bum coverage.
Yeah.
And it was so disappointing because you'd paid, you know, a couple of $100 for a couple of samples to arrive,
wait all that
time for them to make it the way you wanted it, and then you'd get it. And they've totally missed the brief. They've missed the mark. You can't call something full bum swimwear and have medium coverage swimwear.
Like the name, it has to be exactly what it is.
Yeah. So that was back and forth. And that was like back and forth for nearly 12 months.
Yeah. And I remember coming over to your house a couple of times during that period and trying on the samples and whatnot. But there's one time in particular that we were visiting, and you definitely were discouraged. You were like discouraged and frustrated, and I think you'd put quite a lot of money in at that time. And it was kind of that, you know, that part of the entrepreneurial journey where you're like, do I keep going? Do I keep am I throwing good money after bad?
Yes.
Like, is this actually going to work out? And like, can I even be bothered anymore because it's so consuming? Yeah. And I just love you to share, you know, I don't know to what degree you can remember, but I feel like you can remember that stuff in your own journeys.
I do.
Yeah.
I remember it being like, I remember having, you know, I think it was like the third batch of samples that I had. And, you know, like it wasn't one or two swimmer, it was probably 10 samples that I've received each time. So I've got lots of samples that have let me down. And I was so disappointed and so upset. And I'm like, okay, if I'm struggling this hard to get samples of full bum swimwear, imagine the women in the retail shops trying to buy them. So I knew more than ever that I was onto something. So I had to fight. And I know it sounds silly because it's swimwear, but I had to fight to get what I wanted because I knew if it was so hard at this stage that it wasn't being produced. It wasn't coming out. It wasn't in the retail stores.
Yeah.
The other ones were so easy to purchase, the G-strings and the medium coverage. And so I knew that if I could nail the full bum coverage, I was really onto something. So that was like a long process and discouraging. Yeah. And so many times I was like, I'm done. Yeah. But I'd still post my holiday pic on Instagram just in case I wasn't quite done. And I wasn't done.
I love that if you really think about that part of the story and what you just shared there, your tenacity and your resilience was being built through that hard time because it was actually anchoring you in further into knowing that this is something that was needed, and that obviously not everyone's going to want to cover their butt on the beach or by the pool. We can see that. Yeah. And nor do they have to, but there's plenty of women out there who definitely want to, or, you know, I remember you said to me one time, like, what about the women who are at like a pool picnic, a pool barbecue or party with their father-in-law, and they don't, you know, maybe they normally find time their butt out, but it's just that subconscious.
They're going, it became like a tagline, like, maybe you love the cheeky, but if you're heading to your father-in-law's for a barbecue lunch, you need to stop by us. Pick something up.
And so many different reasons, and you know, our teenage daughters and that sort of thing, although our daughters are the same age, but they weren't teenagers at the time, but they were heading into that era. And it sounds to me like you were able to keep anchoring to the vision, obviously, and your reasons and your, you know, belief in this. To what degree did you discuss this with, I mean, of course you discussed it with Jack, but is there anything that's relevant to share there as far as how did you get support to keep moving through that? Was it just kind of like, let's keep going? Did you take it to God? What did you guys discuss?
I think in business, it's so important to have other business cheerleaders around you. You've got to have people that are like, no, pull your finger out. You can do this. You've got this. Because we all have those days where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. And I think, you know, I mean, you're one of them was just like, no, this is good. You'll go back again.
It's going to work.
It's going to work. It's going to work out. I know that the samples cost me lots, but in the end, I've made that back 1,000-fold. So it's totally fine. So I think, yes, resilience. You've got to have resilience in business, because just because it was bad then doesn't mean it's all onward and upward from then on. I still have those moments of getting samples and they're horrible. Yeah. I feel like I'm back to that, you know, pre-launch when I'm getting samples, but I'm much more like, no, I won't accept this from the company anymore.
Yeah, so you're more backing yourself.
I'm backing myself,
being unapologetic,
yes, totally.
Standing firm. I love this. These are such important business principles, regardless of what your business is, your product, your service. Yeah. If you can't be firm, definite, and certain both on this is the exact product, which we talked about earlier, and then no, this is my boundaries or my requirements, then it's going to be an endless uphill battle. And so let's skip ahead a little bit. I definitely want to skip ahead to where you are now, but let's talk about that exciting night where you had a launch party, which I think was the September.
Yes, September 21.
Yeah.
So I am a big believer that I love to celebrate anything. And I think that if you can't celebrate the small, is a principle in the Bible as well, that if you don't look after the small things, you're never going to get the big things. And so I'm like, I've got to celebrate every small moment. I took photos of every moment because I want to look back when I'm in a warehouse and internationally selling and in stores and, all these dreams that I've got, and look back and go, this is where I started. Yeah. And it started in my lounge room with a few tubs. It started with friends.
On the table near your dining table while the house was being renovated and getting flooded on repeat.
Yes, and people coming over, and we've got to walk through my makeshift office to get to the dining table with my product there.
Though. So little label
and I love that. The labels, and that's where I started. And I'm still based from home, but it's the warehouse. We've got so much bigger now. It's not in my lounge room anymore. It's in the rumpus. It's moved downstairs. But I can't even think what you asked me.
The launch party. So you had a launch party.
Yeah, so I had a launch party. I think even before that, though, like the photo shoot was with you and a few of my other friends.
Before the launch party. Yeah, I couldn't remember.
And and it was so good for other people to put my swimwear on the models and go, oh, this is actually these are really good.
Like, looks beautiful, it's flattering. Yeah, so I was one of the models in the first photo shoot, and that was so fun. We just came to Ashya's house and had our hair and makeup done, and the swimwear is just so beautiful. I mean, you'll see that. We'll put links and photos and that sort of thing. And so flattering. And all these moments matter so much.
They do. And I think celebrating them. And I remember that day I was standing with one of the other models, and we just happened to look at my Instagram, and it had gone to 300 followers. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I was so excited to hit 300 because I wanted to acknowledge that when I'm hitting 30,000, who I am now, I'm past that, but 300,000, however that grows, that I was still excited for the 300 women.
Yeah,
I didn't know all of them.
Yeah.
And I still hadn't posted a product picture yet. Mm-hmm. So I was still posting pictures of Australia and hashtagging. Like there was nothing exciting. It was consistent, like you said.
It was consistent no matter what.
Yeah.
Like every day I hear from entrepreneurs who are not making the money they want, where they want to be. And when you start looking under the hood, they're not consistent.
Yeah.
Why? Because it comes down to they're letting the voices of fear, self-doubt, insecurity, not good enough, these kind of things be in the driver's seat instead of, no, I can and I will and I am. And honestly, this is basic success stuff. It's also biblically principled as well. But it's a non-negotiable. And so this woman is such an amazing example of somebody who did what is actually required rather than being driven by her passing, thought cloud of emotions at the time, whatever that might have been, or rather than being driven by whether or not it appeared as though things were working with the samples and so on.
Yeah.
So talk us through the launch party night. I was there. It was a great launch party by the pool. And it was a very exciting moment at maybe 9 p.m. or 7 p.m.
Yeah,
whatever time it was.
The
actual launch.
Yes, so I just invited a heap of my friends over, a launch party. I made it feel like a big deal.
Yeah,
at the time, it's a couple hundred followers. I've got there's no influencer background or anything for me, so it's completely a new like it's a new business.
You had a small product line. How many different?
I probably had about 4 different products at the time in various colors, and to be honest, I only had 2 or 3 of every size at that time.
I remember that.
I didn't start massive. I calculated the risk that if this flopped, that I was willing to lose that amount. I knew I was onto something, but I needed to actually experience that I was onto something.
Yeah.
And so I launched at 8 o'clock. I think we went live on Instagram.
Yeah.
You and one of the other girls went live for me.
Yeah.
And next thing, it was like, that Shopify old-fashioned ding. And that was the most exciting thing I'd ever heard, because it just a few. Now, I wasn't expecting. You hear about these.
Or something very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly.
I was so excited as though it was my business because it's truly a manifestation of something coming to life.
Yeah.
And then you don't have no idea what's going to happen. We could have had a great pool party and nobody bought.
No, and I still would have been happy with that because I was having fun with friends, and I was like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that was the Thursday night at 8 p.m. And by Saturday, my husband was sitting there going, okay, right, you're onto something. We need to invest more money into this. We need to find products. And so by the end of the weekend, I was reordering stock.
Yeah.
I was like in shock. And I've literally been in shock like that ever since.
It was an immediate runaway success.
Yeah.
Like I'm getting goosebumps even recounting these stories.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So the power of consistency, firstly, the power of letting tenacity build, staying the course, following through on something that could have easily been dismissed as, you know, a silly idea or a throwaway idea, or is anyone going to buy it? Like maybe the reason the shops are filled with this stuff is because that's all people want to buy. You've got to remember this when you've got some kind of idea coming through you and you're questioning, going, well, maybe nobody wants that, or maybe there's already enough of that out there. Maybe there's already enough swimwear brands, even if not this particular cut. No, your ideas come to you for a reason. They are not arbitrary. It's up to you to then pick that thing up and run with it. What were some of the, I guess, teething pains or growing pains or anything like that once you did get underway? I don't want to throw too many questions at you at once.
No, you're right.
But that and I guess just anything else that comes to mind, including some of the exciting early moments after that.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I'm a one-woman show, so there is teething problems because there's only a limit to what you can do. But I think you've got to back yourself in it. And I was just thinking about something you just said before. It triggered my brain, but now it's left me, so it'll come back.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that you do have to back yourself. And teething problems was like, obviously cash flow is always a problem, isn't it? Every business has that problem, cash flow and managing that. And to be honest, for the first maybe 8 to 10 months, I was completely winging everything about this business. You know, like it was just intuition. It was just, okay, this feels good to do this at this moment.
Yeah.
And I think there's got to be an element of that.
Definitely.
I know my business better than anyone else.
1,000,000%.
That's what it was, going back to what you were saying before. There is thousands of bikini businesses out there.
Yeah. But there'd be new bikini startups every day.
Every day.
Multiple.
But I had to create.
Even here on the Gold Coast, let alone the rest of them.
Yeah, I know. And in business, I think if you're going to bring something out into the world, what is your point of difference? What is the thing that no other business is doing?
Yeah.
It could be you as a person, what you're bringing to the business. For me, it was the fact that my business is 100% full bum coverage. There is no other swimwear business that I know of or ever heard of that is 100% full bum coverage.
Yeah.
Some of them have that in their range, but it's not their entire range.
Yeah.
So that is my point of difference, that I won't ever have medium or cheeky coverage because they're out there everywhere anyway.
Yeah.
So you've got to have a point of difference. I know with our other business, it was our other business is luxury Portaloo toilets for weddings.
They are amazing. Like the first time I went into one, I wanted to just sit in there and read a book for an hour.
Yeah, they play music, they've got aircon, you know, that thing. But when we started the business, the point of difference was I was the point of difference.
Yeah.
Being a woman as the face of the business, because it's a predominantly male run business.
Yeah.
And we were in the luxury industry, so we made everything luxury about it. I was the point of difference. We're dealing with mostly brides, so they want a woman to deal with, not, you know, a man. So we made that the point of difference. Now we've moved on from that. Now we're leading, you know, we're the leading luxury Portaloo business in Southeast Queensland for what we do, because we had a point of difference. So I think it's important in business that you do.
And I want to mention something else as well. There was a period there when you were still fairly new with full bums where people started asking, will you do, you know, special different cup sizes? Will you do this? Will you do that? And they were all, this is so important to listen to, because so many people watered down their business and watered down who they really are because you're worrying about, what if I don't please everyone and meet everyone's needs? And I've been guilty of this many times in different ways in my business. And these were really valid questions. Like, it would have been very easy, and even some would say, like, of good service, to say, oh yeah, no, great idea. I will start looking at ways to, you know, like incorporate different patterns for different chest sizes and, I don't know, after pregnancy and whatever else. And I think that what you said at the time was something like, maybe one day down the track.
Yeah.
But right now it's just about the full bum swimwear.
Yes.
And that's
just trying to nail
that
before I nail the next thing.
An important business principle, because like I said, so many entrepreneurs, including me over the years, will just start something. Oh yeah, I still believe in this, I'm going to do it. And now next minute you're hopping here and there and everywhere.
Down their initial
and you water
vision.
down. And so that coupled with, I don't know, not following through, not being consistent, not having firm lines about, no, this is what it's meant to be, this is what it's going to be, is a big reason why you can be putting a lot of effort in and not seeing a result. So I really, applaud you for sticking to your guns.
Yeah, I think you've got to know who your audience is. I knew that I wasn't reaching the 18-year-old, 20-year-old girl with a gorgeous figure that's never had children. I am reaching probably that 30 to 60-year-old market. Whether they're a size 8 or a size 18, that's irrelevant, but who wanted to be a little bit more modest at the beach or wanted that coverage, or it's the mum for their teenage daughter.
Yeah.
So I've just had to hone in on who my market is and realizing that I can add the cup sizes down the track. But if I don't stay true to the first value, which was the full bum coverage, then I'm just going to fall away in an overcrowded bikini market.
Yeah.
So
true.
Yeah, you've got to stay true to that. And value mission.
You're talking about foundation as well, aren't you? Like putting the foundation on before you start throwing up the, accessorizing and chandeliers and so on.
Yeah. I mean, I could add so much to the range.
Right.
But if I haven't nailed the full bum coverage, then what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah. So let's talk a bit about where you are now. I came over for lunch last week, but I think the time before that was, actually I know when it was, because it was in January of this year. And I was about to go down to Melbourne and go camping up in the high country with my brothers and my parents. And you gave me that beautiful collaboration piece that is very confusing to me.
Yeah. It's you need a manual back put it on.
It's a stunning one-off, unique piece. And you gave me another bikini, actually the cat bikini. Oh, we didn't even talk about the name.
Oh, I know. So I've actually named the bikinis after friends. They've all got a name. So there is the cat bikini. It doesn't mean that it resembles what I think of that person, but
I'll take it.
This is the shoestring bikini with the full bum coverage. And so I've named them after friends, and it's hilarious.
And I love that the best selling is the Eden, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Eden is Ashya's daughter.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
I know. She loves that too.
Yeah. So that's such a great idea. Where did you even get that name of naming the bikinis after friends?
I actually saw it. There's another brand around that does it after pajamas.
Oh,
and I was like, that's a fun idea. Rather than name it the Tahiti or the random stuff. Yeah. So I name them after friends.
Yeah.
And hopefully I never run out of friends.
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
So it has been said, it shall be done. So I came over in January, and you gave me a couple of sets, and I was about to go camping. So I remember I wore them there, going down the rapids on the Lilo, actually. But I walked into the downstairs, the rumpus room, which had been, I've seen that room. I've seen that room many times, filled with kids and teenagers and so on, and it's a big room. And you took me downstairs, and I nearly tripped over my own feet. I honestly was like, "Are you kidding me?" I knew that the business was going super well, and you'd text me quite a lot, excitedly updating me on different milestones and income goals, and first this month and first that month. So I knew that, but to visually see this space that, probably a similar space to the main area here of my warehouse, which many of you have, I guess, seen enough of to get an idea of, maybe bigger actually, and just floor to ceiling, like a real warehouse.
With a couch and a TV in the middle, because it's still our room.
And now a bunch of puppies. But but floor to ceiling with just, tubs with all the different bikinis sorted and their names on. And it was
legitimate.
It's really cool.
I'm a legitimate business person now.
Honestly, that was my feeling. It was it's like a real business. And honestly, it sounds silly, but I think so many of us as entrepreneurs, and even serial entrepreneurs, we still have this lingering feeling of, oh, am I real? Am I a real entrepreneur? Am I a real business owner? Am I a real woman? It goes on and on, questioning our identity. And we don't all in our businesses get to see a physical, visual room full representation of the business, because many people listening here have a service-based business, not product. But there's something there to just taking a moment, even now in your mind's eye, to picture the visual representation of what you've created and realize whether or not it's in a room in front of you. This thing is real, and this occurred because you said yes to an idea that could have been thrown away. That was
and I think so many people do have ideas and throw them away, and it could have been their business that gave them the lifestyle that they wanted, whatever reason it was. I think, I'm not in business. I do love bikinis and I love swimwear, but there is a means to an end there. I'm creating the lifestyle that I want, and I'm loving the journey of creating it at the same time. But walking down into the garage, into the rumpus, and I think, you know, you've been one of the few people that I've taken down there. It shocks people to go, oh, okay, like this is legitimate now.
Full on,
It's not tubs in the lounge room. It's actually a full-blown warehouse.
Categorized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, to an extent, and I think every business owner, entrepreneur would say this, that you're winging it. You just, it's kind of going, what is the next step?
Yeah. Everyone's
having a little bit of a guess. Yeah. Winging it. There is an element.
If you're not winging it, then what are you doing? Are you following somebody else's point by point plan? Because all business requires some element of being intuition led.
Yeah.
And spirit led. And that's part of the plan. That's part of the strategy. It should be. So if there's not an element of, I'm not sure if I know what I'm doing. In fact, I'm pretty sure I have no idea. I mean, honestly, I just said for years, like, all I'm doing is making stuff up and throwing it at the internet. And at any moment now, I feel like somebody's going to come and knock on the door and say, we know what you've been doing. You have no idea what's going on, and you're not even a real grown-up. Yeah. And I'm actually slightly paraphrasing something Amanda Palmer said in her book, The Art of Asking. But it's something that I taught before about, we all have that inner kind of thing of the fraud police are going to come knocking at the door and go, we know that you don't know what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. I have it with my numbers. Like someone, like the accountant's going to come and go, oh no, that's not actually your numbers. It's really only this much.
Yeah. Interesting.
And so, because it's done so well. It's quickly,
quite a head spin in a way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. That I'm going, oh, maybe I've fudged the numbers by mistake somewhere. Or,
like, can this be real?
Yeah, can it be real?
So did you want to share anything about your numbers?
Yeah, so I mean, I started September 21, so I'm 20 months old. And from 21 to 22, every month I've doubled from the previous month. But October, November, December last year, I tripled what I did the previous one. And so I'm really on track. I mean, I'm growing at about 120% at the moment. And I've just put together my 5-year plan, which is crazy because I've been winging it. And now I've just put together a 5-year plan. And so I am on track to do it, you know, like a 5 million turnover in 5 years' time, or in the next 5 years, as long as I keep tracking the way I do. And I know that there's some years that it's up and down. Yeah. But, you know, that's what I'm working towards. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. What an incredible story. There was something I was going to ask just then and it just popped out of my mind. I've got a different question. The other one will come back. I was going to ask, what's been the most exciting, fun or enjoyable part for you so far? Because I know now you've got so many different designs, and I wonder if you have fun designing them, or what do you...
I love the design part, and I do not have a design background. And so I am just taking swimwear that I love, that I'm seeing around, that's coming in, and I'm adding a full bum. So there's not a lot to that. The most stressful part is picking colours. That still stresses me out. And I procrastinate on that like there is no tomorrow, because I'm like, what I think's nice, well, that's where the imposter syndrome and that comes in. I'm going, oh my gosh, you know, like, am I going to present a whole collection that's going to flop next year? So I do procrastinate on that. So that's probably the scariest. I enjoy most of the photo shoots and that creative element of getting... You know, because when you work for yourself, by yourself, essentially at the moment, it's lonely. Yeah. And so doing the photo shoots with heaps of other women, I love that. Seeing the women, you know, in the swimwear, the photographer doing her thing, you know, the stylist doing her thing, the videographer doing their thing. I love seeing all that come together. And I do love when those dings start going up on Shopify. I'm not going to lie.
Who doesn't?
I still do a happy dance. Yeah. The best thing I remember is in October, just gone, I had my phone through the Bluetooth in the house. I'd been playing music during the day and I hadn't turned it off. And Jack and I were sitting on the couch. It was a Friday evening and we're having our Friday cheese platter and gin and tonic. And next thing, the phone starts dinging, but it's going through the whole house. And it just all of a sudden just went crazy. And we just sat there laughing.
That's so cool.
I'm like, this is awesome. It's like, ding, 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 ding.
That's very cool.
We couldn't even get full conversations out because it just kept dinging through the house. Yeah. And I'm like, I just want that through my house all
day, every day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Great. Yeah. Okay. There's so many great takeaway points here. I would say my favorite from all of this is celebrate even your small wins and don't be afraid to do a happy dance at every moment. I know this has been an area of weakness for me where I felt like I should just brush things away under the carpet, like, oh, it's not really a thing, or it's no big deal, or when I do this, or when I do this, or when I do this.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's important, and it is a principle. It's a supernatural and spiritual principle that is going to be put to work should you apply it. So I think I just have 2 more questions. I would love to know, what's some of the feedback that you get from ladies? What are the most commonly things that people say?
So I got a letter. A lady actually sent me a letter. She was exchanging something actually, and she sent me a handwritten note, and it just said in there, Ashya, thank you so much for making and releasing this product. She said, I had bowel cancer 12 years ago, and I've never been able to find swimwear to cover my scars.
Oh, wow.
And wasn't bowel cancer, it was cervical cancer. Anyway, so she's got scarring, and she said, and these are the first swimmers I've been able to find.
Wow.
And to cover it. So I've actually stuck that up on my wall right behind where I work. I had a husband email me during summer, and he just said, I wanted to reach out to you and let you know that we just had the best family holiday ever. He said, my wife was always one that was so self-conscious about being in her swimwear and seeing other beautiful bodies all over the beach. And she would always hide up under the umbrella or the tent. And I would swim with the kids and build the sandcastles and all that kind of thing. And she said, he said this year she was out swimming. We had the best family holiday.
Oh,
and he said, I put it down to her bikinis.
Yeah, wow.
And he said that, there's a saying, you put a woman in a power suit and watch her rule the world.
Yeah.
When a woman feels comfortable in what she's wearing, it does change the whole environment, and women are the thermostats to their family and their home.
Yeah.
And so I think that when she felt comfortable in her swimwear, it changed the whole dynamics of their family holiday.
What an amazing
And it
story.
changed it enough that the husband emailed me to tell me that. And I don't know him. It wasn't a friend or it wasn't a connection.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything like that. And then yesterday, someone DM'd me a picture of them in Bali, and she was 40 years old. She said, I've never owned a bikini, and look how amazing I look. And so I'm like, these are the stories I live for. Like, I love, and I'm like, there's bikinis. It's nothing like earth-shattering, world-changing.
It's what you said.
I'm
it's
changing.
Exactly what you said.
Bikini. Yeah,
and it doesn't matter what someone's size or shape is. Different people have different reasons why they want to wear what's maybe not necessarily on trend. And then I think a lot of the time, women, me certainly in different parts of my life, you're trying to look, how you think you should look or fit in, and it's very powerful, what you said.
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, I cannot imagine that there's a woman out there who has not had a self-conscious moment with a bikini.
Totally.
Regardless what size you are.
Yeah, they're the hardest thing to buy, aren't they?
So I just think it's huge. It's a hugely important service. It's a wildly successful business. My final question is, if you had, and this is my final question for everyone, this is my favorite kind of bring it together question. So let's say we were on a balcony, you and I, and basically the whole world is down. Like, imagine, I don't know, the Prince William and Princess Kate presenting a baby to the world. That sort of scenario, right?
Okay.
Everyone's down there, but you've got a megaphone and you've got 60 seconds to tell everyone the one thing they most need to understand about business.
Yeah. Only one thing. I think so many people wrap their identity in their business.
Mm-hmm.
The business is not who I am, it's what I do. And so I think I would shout from, you're more than just your business. So that would be one thing I would shout. I would give it all away tomorrow for my family, my husband, my relationship, and my kids.
That to me before.
Yeah. And I would say that it's taken me a long time to come to that revelation, because my previous career or job my identity was very much wrapped up in that. And so when we stopped doing that, I didn't know who I was. So I had to find myself again.
Mm-hmm.
So I've come to this conclusion of this business, Full Bums, is not who I am, it's what I do. And I find great joy in it. I find great satisfaction in it. It is very fulfilling, but there's more to my life than just this business. And I have to keep reminding myself that when I get stressed or overworked, that this is a means to an end.
Yeah.
It is, so I can.
It's a vehicle.
Yeah, it's a vehicle, and it's, it's flowing through me. I want, how people say the thing between their two names when they die, the dash.
Mm-hmm.
When they were born and when they died, and there's a dash.
Yeah.
I want to be known as being generous. And so that's my thing. So this isn't, for me, this is a means to an end. Our business is extremely generous. towards not-for-profit organisations. It's very generous to our local church that we attend. And that's why I do it, so I can be generous. It's, you know, there's plenty of other things I could be doing. It'll be a lot less stressful than running a business. But this is what I feel like I'm called to at the moment. And this is the vehicle that God's given me to use to do what I feel like I'm called to do. So,
wow.
I hope that's answered your question.
That was
Would I shout that from a balcony?
I don't know. Maybe ends up in that situation you're going to. But honestly, that's the most unique answer I've ever had to that question. It was brilliant. I know that so many people are just going to be screaming yes right now as you're listening and watching. So Ashya, thank you so much.
Thank you
just
for having me.
Given just a world of genius and a world of wisdom, as I predicted, and I was right. I know that you're going to want to connect with Ashya with Full Bum Swimwear, and you can do that on Instagram at Full Bum Swimwear. We will obviously drop some other links and whatnot for you below, and maybe even something special for our viewers and listeners.
Definitely. We can put a cat discount there for sure.
Yeah, why would we not? So please let me know. Please leave a comment wherever you're watching or listening, or just even, you know, DM Ashya or DM me if there's something that you really want to share that spoke to you from this. We would love to hear. Have an amazing rest of the day or evening wherever you are in the world, and get out there and press play at what you are meant to be doing. Thank you.
Thanks.
Cool. So it's still recording, so we'll just cut it in a moment. That was
cool.
amazing.
Is that all right?
It was so good. People are going to love that. It was very different because, well, I don't think I've interviewed anyone with a product. Well, there's people that have a product basically just like on the side.
Yeah, because it's more
But yeah, that part is different. But the way that you answer things was definitely different. There are a lot of really good takeaway points. So we'll do show notes for this and like, you know, these are like big takeaway points or quote marks, like quotable things.